Hello and welcome. I'm Yvonne Chan in Singapore, and you're watching FIA Dialogues. Thank you for joining us for the first of 6 Dialogues editions, where we discuss the latest trends, challenges, and opportunities in the food and beverage industry. Each Dialogue edition is an hour-long deep dive into a particular topic that is making a difference to the industry and may be vitally important to your business. Dialogues stream at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. over 3 days, so 6 Dialogues titles in all. There's more information on our FIADialogues.com website. If you have questions for our live Q&A coming up in about 30 minutes, you can ask questions by typing them directly into the chat box on the right-hand side of the YouTube live stream at any time. Today's Dialogues edition is all about reformulation and healthier food for Asia post-pandemic. But before we delve into this topic, you will hear from a number of our industry leaders about their thoughts on the food industry and some of the key issues and challenges as we all navigate these unprecedented times. Finally, we thank our sponsors, Corteva, Danone, Kerry, and Mondelēz for their generous support in making this event possible. The double burden of obesity and undernutrition is an emerging threat to health and healthcare systems in the region and many countries across Asia. Amid growing policy pressures to address these public health issues, supporting good health remains one of the most vital roles of the food and drink industry. Reporter Greg Ward spoke with Maurizio Brusadelli, the Executive Vice President and President Asia Pacific of Mondelēz International, about public health and what the industry can learn from the COVID-19 experience.
How are you improving your business by using things you've learned during COVID-19? Have there been any learnings that allow you to improve your business?
Yeah, there are a few learnings. During COVID-19, consumers were and are being more purposeful when they choose their products. So we are simplifying our presence in stores to make it easier to choose product based on their needs. We have also been more efficient and effective from a manufacturing and sales perspective in the past months. And it is clear we don't need all the SKUs that we have today. We are focusing more on our core, reducing the number of SKUs in our portfolio.
We have heard a lot about new trends emerging among consumers, but are there any trends that were evident before COVID-19 that have not changed?
Maybe that didn't change. It's e-commerce has been amplified. I mean, e-commerce and buying online has become digitally savvy for people that maybe are not used to that, like the more experienced people. So this one, I think, didn't change, but has been amplified. I think the fact that the product has to have the right taste, the right price-value equation didn't change and will have to stay as well in the future.
What do you think will be different, and how will you respond to that?
Consumers are also using our brands as ingredients in their cooking, not just as a snack, and I think this will stay for longer. Taking care of themselves and family will be a primary need, and food and beverages companies have high standards of quality and ingredients, so products from companies such as Mondelēz meet this need of taking care of self and the family.
Are they looking for long life products to store?
I think they want to have product available to be consumed. I don't think it is just buying for store, but buying for consuming. And as you do breakfast, lunch, dinner, and many snacking pause during the day, you need something that is obviously there for you.
How do you use innovation to future-proof your business?
I think innovation is very relevant, but we need to balance our core growth with innovation. We need to ensure that we do not over-index on line extension and flavor additions. Our innovation focus is getting back to core consumer needs, better understanding of consumer needs to offer them our winning products in pack sizes or format to meet how they are snacking in the new world, and obviously bringing new snacking products. We talk about e-commerce. E-commerce has grown significantly globally and accelerating during COVID. So how do we meet consumer online needs with different SKUs and price pack architecture for the channel? And how do we leverage it by having the right team with the right capabilities, with the right advertising and consumer spending?
Now, it's remarkable that by 2050, demand for food supply is expected to double. That's an extraordinary growth rate. How do you respond to that sort of demand?
I think from a consumer perspective, as urbanization happens, people get busy, and this will lead to the need for convenience. Healthy, reliable, and trusted snack will be part of every consumer's daily routine. They will commute, they will spend more time outside their home. So investing in understanding the needs of the rapidly emerging middle-class consumer is crucial for us to be ready and work upfront and understanding their needs going forward.
Are you able to tell us what change in consumer tastes and trends or preferences you are expecting over the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, maybe taste is difficult to forecasting. I can for sure give an example of Gen Z consumers. They will enter the workforce and they have grown up in a hyper-connected, always-on, social media-centric world. They use gadgets to monitor their well-being, apps to check pack labels for nutritional content, and get diet recommendations tailored to suit their lifestyle. So products that are delivering an individual's well-being, celebrate local taste, support the community, and are good food for planet are the one that I think will be successful over the next decade.
Do you believe lockdowns gave populations a new appreciation for food and beverages?
I think yes. Obviously, they always liked food and beverages. They consume now in a different way. They cannot go anymore out of home. They cannot stop in a bar. They cannot have a snack in a restaurant or can have a lunch, dinner. So they did this at home. I think they rediscover how to cook. I like cooking, but I think the young generation lost the ability to cook because it was perceived a little bit oldish. But cooking is also bringing families together, and you can cook simple things with your parents, with kids, brothers and sisters, and really create a special moment for them. So I think there is a rediscovery of what is good in life.
There's been a lot of interest in the growing interest in plant-based foods, replacing meat, for example. Do you think that's a very real trend, or has it been overblown?
I mean, I think, as always, there will be a balance. There are people with some deficiencies, which I'm sure will appreciate the opportunity to taste something different. I think there is the opportunity to make something without using a lot of world resources that will be scarce in the future. So if we can be more effective in producing things, I think this will be beneficial for everyone. And there will be skeptical people, because if I want real meat, I like real meat, and maybe I'm worried about the way that the different products are made of. So I think will be a mix as always, but if the companies can focus and give the right credential to the product, the right taste, the right price, and obviously the product that is good for you, I think this could be an evolution as well.
Thank you. That was Maurizio Brusadelli talking to Greg Ward. Food Industry Asia keeps its members up to date with all that is happening in the industry. And on August 12, we launched 4 episodes of FIA's Food for the Future TV news program. Food for the Future will talk to industry leaders and deliver news-style reports on the latest developments in innovation, health and nutrition, resilience, and sustainability. Here's a short preview. HPB actively encourages Singaporeans to choose healthier products.
By simply purchasing any healthier option at participating retail and F&B partners, consumers will receive a receipt embedded with a QR code. They can then scan the QR code with the H365 app to earn health points and to redeem rewards such as grocery vouchers under the Eat, Drink, Shop Healthy Challenge.
How will the food and beverage industry evolve over the next 5 years?
They have to keep innovating, right? And they have to do it quicker and quicker and quicker because the consumers, they want new solutions. So what you're seeing with big brands is, where a lot of the innovation, for example, is coming out of the US, right, and then rolling it back into the regions. Now a lot more innovation is actually taking place in the region itself because the local brands are much quicker with regards to innovating, so they have to keep up to be able to compete.
We're talking about reformulation today in FIA Dialogues, and it's a great subject to discuss with General Manager Asia Pacific at PepsiCo, Yao Weiwei. She's speaking with Greg Ward.
Do you have any examples, Weiwei, of how you're improving your business based on the lessons you might have learned during COVID?
So we did, I think, see a lot of the agility, I think, coming out in terms of what the business has been able to do. For example, we'll be able to respond into a more of an online trend very quickly in many markets. And this is something that really helped us. I think there are more examples from North America. They'll be able to launch essentially a direct-to-consumer website that helps, I think, the consumer to order a wide portfolio of our products online. And that has been done actually within the 30 days from I think it is really leveraging the technology and the portfolio we're having and the system that we have.
And you seem confident that you can respond to these new trends?
We are embarking on work called Reimagine the Future, right? And so the Reimagine the Future will mean, we need to develop certain capabilities, which currently I think it is at a very infant stage. And as we think it is that's going to be so relevant for how the company wants to be successful in the marketplace. And the e-commerce and digitalization are the key capabilities that are being called out as we need to continue to grow.
What do you see as the main challenges lying ahead in terms of sustainability?
We know that there's a rising demand of food, and the climate has been worsening. And, there's packaging waste piling up and other scarcity of water. I think these are, I would think it is major challenges that we are facing. And I think it is as a society, right? So it is not, I think it is individual companies, but as a food and beverage company, we see these are the few things I was talking about are extremely relevant to us.
How are you going to respond to those challenges?
Well, this is a huge question. And at first, I think it is, I'm thinking is, for PepsiCo, I think we have long recognized that, for a company to be successful in the market, we need to embrace the responsibility. And so that we be able, I think it is our success and it cannot be achieved without, I think it is the prosperity of the communities. And one thing I think is for us, we're looking at agronomy because we are, I think it is the food company. And so we are looking at how do we do sustainable farming, right? Making sure that practices, we are sourcing from the areas that we can help to regenerate the land. We are looking at how do we help, especially in emerging markets, how do we help to developing better modern farming practices, and so that it can be more sustainable. And then we have had very, very good practice in China, Vietnam, and Thailand, as in the areas that we are growing potatoes and in partnership with, I think, local communities.
Innovation. Tell me what innovation means to your brand.
Talking about food and beverage company, I would think it is the most important thing is being very consumer-centric, right? Really understanding, I think it is, if we're talking about current, we do want to be able to offer consumer the options what they're looking for today. And also, I think it is important we want to do is to anticipate their needs for the future as well. So innovation plays a huge role as we think about how do we continue to stay very relevant to the consumers of today and the future.
How do you believe the food and beverage industry will evolve over, say, the next 5 years?
What we see is the trend is also staying locally relevant is going to be very, very important. Clearly, I think that there's this huge surge of a demand for foods as an industry. And so we are looking at, I think it is a PepsiCo, and looking at how do we, I think it'll be global, but it'll also stay very, very local.
Wei, food demand between now and 2050 is expected to double. So how will your industry respond to that?
This is a big, big question. Also, I think it is a challenge and a responsibility as well. And as an opportunity perspective, clearly, I think it is so we'll be able to service more consumers and from that perspective. And then given there is a demand and it's the needs. And but from a responsibility perspective, it is also, I think it is a really on the company like PepsiCo and a lot of the industry, I think it's the peers, to look at how do we do things responsibly, right? So as we're looking at it in terms of, okay, how do we uphold to higher standard for food quality, safety? This, I think, will be one part of it as we think through.
Could you give some hint as to what you might be expecting in terms of consumer tastes and preferences 10 years from now?
I wish, I think it is the consumers will have to be able to have portfolio cater for more of the new silver generation. And as a food and a beverage company in the past, a lot of the focus has been more on the younger generation. But I think as people's life quality, I think it improves, the life expectancy extends. And one area I think it is, I would think it is that people will be more looking for nutritional options. And on the beverage side, I think it is also looking for example, I think it is some reduced sugar offerings. And on the food side, we'll be looking at more of a less sodium, less saturated fat and type of products. And one thing I would think it is more of, I would want to call it, okay, breakfast, I think it is over the years have evolved from more of an in-home to on-the-go. I would think in the next 10 years, it may come back to a little bit more of going in-home. And so we may see some of the loops coming around where consumer consumption habits changes. That will, I think, give people some food for thought as we think about how we're going to develop our offerings into the future as well.
Thanks to Yao Wei and to Greg. It's great to hear from two of our leaders to better understand the challenges and opportunities that they currently see across the sector. Now it's time for the first of our panel sessions, Reformulation, Healthier Food for Asia Post-Pandemic. And Greg is about to introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Yvonne. Welcome to the first of our panel discussions, and the topic today is reformulation. We're joined by Penny Chu from Mondelēz International and Xiuling Gao from Cargill Corporation. Peggy, let's start with you. We know from recent research that 98% of Asian consumers are trying to improve their diet. So, how is the food industry responding?
Yes, consumers are certainly putting more emphasis on health and well-being with the foods that they choose to eat. And we see the same trend with how consumers are demanding more from their snacks. And so food industry is responding in two different ways. One, they look at reformulations within the existing portfolio. And two, we looked at the innovations with new options for consumers. And to do either of these effectively, you have to understand what consumers are looking for and what the trends are going on out there, which can vary between developed and developing markets like, say, Singapore and Indonesia. So say, for example, consumers in Singapore, they are more likely to accept, or they are actively seeking healthier options like the brown rice or drinks with less sugar or less sweet over here. So as we review and adjust our recipes, like Oreo, for example, towards healthier formulations. And we can choose to launch options like Oreo less sugar to cater for consumers who are actively looking for this in their snacks repertoire.
So, Xiuling, you heard there from Peggy, consumers definitely looking for healthier options. Do you have anything to add in terms of how the industry is responding to that?
Yeah, absolutely. We share a similar view as Peggy mentioned earlier. Right, when the lockdown happened, consumer they have go to the market less often, and also looking at different options to ensure their healthy lifestyle at home. So when the consumer behavior change like this, and absolutely we need to respond it to more in terms of what we can do to help them to meet their needs when they are facing a very difficult time. One example we could say that, for example, like dairy product, consumer are looking at the longer shelf life. And what we can do is change our recipes in our products and also enhance certain function of the product ingredients. So enable customer like Mondelēz can offer these kind of solutions to consumer.
Peggy, how is Mondelēz, what sort of feedback are you getting from consumers in terms of the way they're responding to the products that have been reformulated and, in fact, new product innovations? What's the response from consumers?
Well, consumers are at the heart at everything we do. So it is important that, they are part of every stage of the reformulations or innovations that we do. So we start with what consumers are looking for. And identifying the need that is driving the purpose of the reformulations or innovation. And understanding these core consumer needs is critical in creating that product that consumers will love or continue to love. And taste is very important driver to any product success. So success lies in balancing that taste and consumer well-being expectations. Many of our brands are actually classic products that consumers have known for a really long time. So they know that taste well. So when it comes to reformulations, we have to make adjustments over time as consumers do not want to sacrifice taste. So there's these elements of time investments that we need to put in order to kind of bring consumer along with our reformulations. On the other hand, they are more open to new product innovations as they are experiencing something different than their favorite brands. So they are more willing to try products that has different taste profile.
So they're more willing to try new things. Do you think it's possible that consumer acceptability could still be further improved?
For sure. And that continuous consumer feedback is important. And that's part of parcel of every product that's going out there, getting feedbacks and coming back to make changes according to what they look for.
Xiuling, your company Cargill is very focused on the upstream side of the food business. Are there opportunities to improve the quality of the food we produce for Asian consumers at the farm gate? And how do we do that?
Yes, absolutely. That is a very important part of Cargill's focus, is to work with the upstream different parts of value chains from farmers down to the processing technologies, etc., to help deliver a good taste to consumer. Right, taste is king. I fully agree with that. But also we need to work around the whole value chain, the improvement opportunities that we see, and Cargill absolutely take this opportunity to innovate around the area. Example I can provide is, for example, our Xiuling oil supply chain in Australia. We have innovated around our seed technologies that we use the bread seed with any genetic modification, that we add a Xiuling content into the oil. And then when it apply this oil into the downstream of food ingredients, that will provide it a very healthy nutrition to the consumer, as it's very high in monounsaturated fats, but also extended the shelf lives and improve the taste. This is one example, right, from seed to the product ingredients. And the other example is a lot of countries start to request food manufacturers providing more alternative to higher saturated fats to help people with their non-communicable disease concern. We also take this opportunity to innovate around the processing technologies, so we can produce ingredients with good functionality without compromising the food taste, but deliver better, healthier functions to the consumer.
And so what reformulation or fortification actions is Cargill taking?
We serve very big market, especially in South Asia, like Pakistan, India, where the fortification and also help the malnutrition is a very, very important part of government regulations. And the Cargill actually took those opportunities, we're seriously looking in terms of how we adding certain vitamins to help the consumers with their overall nutrition balance. Example could be like a vitamin A. We add it in the cooking oils. So vitamin A is crucial for human fetal development and also visual health.
Peggy, how is Mondelēz prioritising the right investment in food and drinks that will address the ongoing nutrition challenge and the fallout from COVID-19?
Yes, it's still early in the process at the moment to see how they will change in the long term. But what we are seeing is that consumer focus have shifted to self and family care. So they are going to be more selective with products that they consume. So there are a few ways that we are responding to this shift in terms of focus on self and family care. So first of all, we will continue to focus on products that meet their needs and investing more in our communications by educating them about key nutritional attributes of products. So for example, learning more about the role of the vitamins and minerals and how they can support the immune functions in the body. And secondly, we take this opportunity as well to work with experts and run consumer-based campaigns to inspire consumers to snack mindfully, learn about portions, and enjoy it with all their senses without distractions, because in this climate, it's just so easy to be distracted by so many things. So I think it's important that we are in that moment of eating, just appreciate that eating moments and enjoy it with your senses.
Xiuling, we know COVID-19 put a lot of stress on food supply chains across Asia. How has the food industry responded to that so far?
Wow, that is absolutely the past few months my biggest challenge, to manage the food supply chain interruptions and to ensure that we continue to supply to our customers and consumers. Few examples you can see where we see the challenges and how we react to that is when the upstream plantation, for example, and also the shipping liners, when they had interruptions due to certain government regulation, lockdown, etc., we have to work on the business contingency plan, the business continuous plan, to work with our customer, because our customer have a similar challenge. But at the end, if we don't have the food supply to our customers' manufacturing place, the consumer will not have the product that they need during this very critical time. Many of them are all very essential food. And so what we have to do is really work around different partners from governments, including governments, agencies, and also the supply chain partners, to make sure that we will be able to fulfill, to ensure the supply chain's reliabilities. So another thing I would mention a little bit is during this pandemic, also the shipments, the logistic arrangement from how customer receive their good has changed. So for example, like Southeast Asia, temperature is very hot, but also consumer also want to have some indulgent food like chocolate. So the heat resistance for the transportation condition during like this time is very important. So that will also relate to what kind of innovation we can work around in terms of providing better heat resistance in the ingredients, help our customer and consumer when they enjoy those kind of chocolates, indulgent food, to help them with their stress during those long working from home situations. That's also very crucial.
So the crisis gave us an opportunity to further innovate, and I'm sure you would agree COVID-19 has also given us the opportunity to pivot to perhaps producing more healthy foods that benefits consumer nutrition.
I would say yes, absolutely. That's one of the key major findings that which is very reassuring to us. We have been focusing on the healthy trend before COVID-19, and during our recent research from our various different countries in the region to understand consumers' preferences, it seems this trend will stay and even stronger during the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. To continue work on this area, to innovate around the food supply chain, help consumer to have better nutrition, that's very, very important. The examples I could provide would be like, for example, lower sugar. Right? Lots of consumers are very concerned about during long working from home, how would I manage my total calorie intake? And Cargill's sweetener business, they already have developed lots of solutions. For example, in terms of plant-based proteins and some of natural sweeteners that can help to make sure that consumers feel more healthier and also to make sure they balance their calories during this period of time.
Peggy, is there anything else that has emerged from COVID-19 that you would like to mention in a positive light? Any other positives that emerged from COVID-19?
As we have addressed it quite a few times already, that consumers' awareness on health is increasing, and that COVID situation has actually make it more important when consumers look at what is important now in looking after themselves and looking after their family. And that is actually a really important driver to push industry overall, basically, to look at how much more we have to do in inventing products that meets their needs. As Xiuling mentions that sugar, reduced products and, sugar reductions is a very important area. It's an important area for us being a snacking company as well. And pre-COVID, we have launched, for example, the dairy Kerry milk that has 30% less sugar. And it wasn't that long ago that we also have Oreo less sweet as well, or less sugar, with 25% less sugar compared to original Oreo. And efforts like that, we will continue as we are looking to help consumers in achieving that healthier lifestyle, as it's far more important now post-COVID.
Xiuling, it's now clear that COVID-19 may be with us for some time, and that means we face issues related to accessibility and affordability for those more healthy foods. What actions can the food industry, governments and other stakeholders take to counter these problems?
That's a very good question. This is, in fact, one of the subject that myself and our company that have been put lots of thinking around it in terms of, how we exit the pandemic faced with COVID, and also how when consumers and customers' activities recovers, what can we do to continue to ensure the sustainability of the overall value chains, and also keep innovate around this opportunity provided from this crisis, deliver customer and consumer a affordable, nutrition, healthy solutions from Cargill side. A couple of areas I like to share with the group is about, first one is I think we need to continue to strengthen this the overall sustainability. We want to make sure our consumer can benefit for these kind of affordable ingredients for longer term without compromising the environment. For example, like a coconut oil and coconut ingredients from the overall coconut value chain. Consumer has loved coconut for a long time, right? So, but the overall coconut supply chain still have a lot of room to do in terms of the overall sustainabilities. And Cargill has been championing the sustainability program in Philippines with small farmer holders to ensure they improve their yield. So improve yield, right? That absolutely will help reduce the cost in the long run, but also make sure that they adopt all the good practices that Cargill can bring from the rest of the world, so to help them to ensure that we look after our small farm holders, the overall environment, and also a good ingredient, sustainable ingredient into the tasty products. Another area I think in terms of affordable, sustainable, but long term, is we have been working with startups to make sure that we innovate around lots of opportunities so we can continue to provide better solutions to customers like Mondelēz, and so they can serve consumer better, right? But the COVID-19 have put a very difficult situation for lots of small, medium enterprise. So I would highly continue to really promote the overall support from government, from different agencies and also companies around the world to make sure we support those small, medium enterprise to continue to keep this highly innovative society going so we can continue providing better, affordable solutions for our customer.
Thank you both for your insights today. Let's wrap up with a final comment from each of you about what the future might hold. Going to you first, Peggy. Clearly lots of challenges ahead, but I hope you're feeling optimistic.
I am. And, being in snacking business, and snacks brings joys to people, and it brings a level of comfort. And I think at the end of the day, as we are really shouldering through this whole COVID situations, we hope, snacks continue to be a very important part of everybody's diet. And at the end of the day, snack mindfully.
And Xiuling, from your point of view, again, challenges lie ahead, but the demand is there, especially with a focus on healthier foods.
Absolutely. We would like to continue to take the opportunity that the pandemic or COVID-19 crisis have provided us to work around how we continue to provide affordable, nutritious, and healthy ingredients for our consumer. We will continue to focus on how we innovate with our partners throughout the value chain. That's where Cargill can play from the farm gate down to the consumer side, and to innovate every part of the value chain from from the sustainability point of view, from the production point of view, and also from innovation point of view to bring the community with us.
Once again, thank you both very much for your time and insights today. That was Peggy Chu from Mondelēz International and Xiuling Gao from Cargill Corporation. Back to you now, Yvonne.
Our thanks to Chu Pei-ji from Mondelēz and Guo Xiuling from Cargill. Shortly, we'll be crossing to our live Q&A session where an expert panel is standing by to answer your questions about reformulation and healthier food for Asia post-pandemic. If you haven't already, it's simple to be a part of the live discussion. There is a chat box on the right-hand side of the YouTube live stream where you can type in your question and we'll try to answer as many as possible. Now, the moderator for this session is Senior Partner at McKinsey, Dymfke Kuijpers. Over to you, Dymfke.
Well, good afternoon to you all. And I am very glad to have with me a very interesting panel. You have the full profiles online. So just shortly, you have Federico from Barilla. You have Parth from Kerry and Peggy from Mondelēz. And my name is Dymfke and I'm from McKinsey. And I very much look forward to this conversation. I know there are already many questions thrown in, so don't hesitate to continue to ask those. Maybe just get us started. We know COVID has been really driving increased health awareness of consumers thinking about health and nutrition. And depending on the country, Asian consumers are actually really thinking about their diets. One question is like, how much do you really see translated in actual behavior, Federico? How do you think that COVID-19, in your eyes, affected demand for healthy food?
Yeah, thank you, Dymfke. Definitely, COVID has accelerated a trend that was already existing. And yes, I can confirm that we are seeing a big increase in the demand of healthy food. Actually, the trend we are seeing is a trend on holistic health that is related to food and lifestyle at the same time. So eating better, living better. For what concerns to food, we really have to define what healthy food is, because there is still a concept that is being created around the perception of healthy food in consumers. And this is related to, on one side, entering into a new healthy category, so something that the consumer didn't try before and that is associated to health. So it can be an ethnic food, or can be a different innovative category. So, for example, for Barilla is an Italian company, so this is more of a new category for the Asian consumers that has this idea of healthiness. but also the reformulation of the current products in terms of healthier attributes. And this also links with sustainability. More than 50% of the Asian consumers say that they are open to more sustainable way of eating, and this is related to this. But then the last point, and the most important point, is about taste. So the healthy food will have to go with taste, and people is refraining to giving taste just for the sake of health. And here, the role of innovation, and particularly reformulation, is extremely important, because companies have to work to provide consumers a continuous great taste experience while improving the nutritional profile of products.
That is very clear. Thank you very much, Federico. Parth, Federico mentioned both entering new categories as well as reformulating existing categories, and the importance of taste and making sure you keep taste up with consumer demand. Any views from your side, what you see companies doing and who could be the potential winners of this trend?
Absolutely. Look, I'll try and build up on what Federico said. Taste is absolutely king, right? That's not going to go away. So if you look at the decision-making criteria from a consumer point of view, it's taste, price, convenience, and nutrition, typically the top four, right? But look, what's happened over the last few months, we're seeing a couple of things in the market. And we're seeing a lot of players, working out their plans around, how do you actually meet the needs of the consumers. So one thing in the near term, what we are seeing is clearly, a lot of interest and launches around immunity, right? And if you look at, if you do any social media analysis, you look at the Google searches, clearly the need for immune health solutions, boosting them has shot up the roof. And companies are trying to address those needs through different categories, right? So either it's dairy, bakery, beverage, snacks, companies are trying to make sure that the solutions are much more healthier, and maybe they address the need around immunity, right? So that's one near-term play that we are seeing in the market. The second, which is a bit more longer term, and which Federico kind of referenced to, is the overall holistic wealth and health and wellness kind of a play. So beyond immunity, as consumers, begin to understand, they understand, at least in this part of the world, where food can make a big difference to the health, to their own health, make them more healthier, make them work in a much more productive manner. The question on the table would be, what are the other consumer need states which will be addressed through food and beverage solutions? So people are working home. So could that be, longer energy? Could that be about the protein deficiency? Could it be about a digestive health, brain health, for instance? So clearly, these are the two kind of plays that we're seeing in the market. Number one, clearly reformulation around making sure that the products are a bit more healthier, maybe focused on immunity. But longer term, the play is going to be a bit more holistic. It'll go way beyond immunity to some other solutions that consumers are clearly looking to, address through food and beverage. So that's
how do these two things play out if you look at a company like Mondelēz? What do you see as most important?
I'll give you a different perspective, coming from a snacking companies, and, fully agree with what Federico and Parth are saying. And also, based on what we're seeing in the early consumer trends in response to the COVID-19, consumer has shifted to that, taking care of self and family as primary needs. And so this is no longer like a choice that, they have to make, but it is a primary need. And this translates to then, consumer increasing, being more aware what they're eating. And, we're seeing them, turning to brands or products, in times of uncertainty. And a number of things that, we as a company are doing to continue to help consumer make that right choice, and for their circumstances. So whether it is about putting that right information on the food labels, or whether it is about, designing the right product for them. So at the product level, like reformulations and increasing portion control packs are important, along with, like providing new and different options, to what, Parth was saying before, like immunity and different, specific health needs that they are now looking for are critical. Now, in the education front, that providing that clear and simple nutrition, decorations unpacked, means consumer can then immediately see what's in the product, and we can also help them make that choice. It relates to the quantity they eat, and we do have a program, called Mindful Snacking, which means, like guiding, consumer to be in that moment, understanding, why you're snacking, how you're snacking, and making sure you have the right portions, and really be in that, snacking and enjoy that moment.
That is super helpful. Thank you, Vicky. And maybe building on that theme of education, one question from the audience, Federico, is how could reformulation actually address the improvement of public health, particularly in some of the developing countries? I'd love to get your thoughts.
I think reformulation is an holistic exercise because, as Peggy was mentioning, is about first portion. So making sure that we make people understand the right portion to get the energy they need to live. And of course, this is an exercise that doesn't last one day or 1 month. It is a continuous effort that requires investment. But then the other point is about the steps of reformulation and engaging the right and making sure that the right stakeholders are involved. And I would like to make an example on tomato sauces that we usually sell with pasta. Now, sauces have a relatively relevant salt content because it's the culinary element of sauce. But then we rethought the way of looking at the taste of sauces, making sure that the sapidity, so the savory of the sauce, would come not only from salt, but also from the natural salt that comes from the ingredient. So at the end of the day, we entered a big program of reduction of salt in sauces and also of sugar, even beyond the culinary pinch, in order to have a better performance on people's health. And in Australia, this was something that we partnered with the Georgia Institute and the Heart Foundation. And actually, we managed to reduce strongly the salt content, particularly in a few recipes, by 50%. And this was a very successful win-win exercise that we did with this partner locally. Now, one key point of reformulation is that it cannot go in one go. So it has to go step by step in order to educate people to the taste, but also explain where the taste is coming from. So you remove salt, but you have the natural salt, for example, of the olives and the tomatoes. So this is an overall view at this exercise.
That is very helpful. Another question from the audience. You spoke about some of the responsible consumption. How is the food industry going to address the trans fatty acids challenge? Any views on that from your side, Becky?
Yeah, well, trans fat is really an old topic, actually. So like we as a company, we committed to remove the partially hydrogenated fat way before that it now become a regulations that is now happening in many countries. And we are proud to say that today none of the products that we have in Mondelēz actually carry the partially hydrogenated fat. And we are hoping that these are kind of the proactive actions that are helping consumers in removing that trans fat or reducing the trans fat in a diet.
That is very encouraging to her. Maybe just building a little bit more on this concept of innovation and the role the industry can play. A question for you, Parth. If you look at food innovations, do you see the focus to be more on functional foods or plant-based or more on ingredient fortification? What's your view from that?
That's a good question. Look, if I refer back to the research that the FIA team had done in a few markets in Asia on reformulation, and we've also done our own piece of consumer research around it, coupled with the fact that if you do the analysis on social media, you get a good picture of what the consumer needs are and how the industry is kind of reacting to it. So if I boil the whole thing down around reformulation, right, to me it comes to two things actually. Number one, consumers are looking to get less of the bad things. So the perceived badness is in sugar, salt, and fat. So they want less of that. And they want more of the goodness, which is, your ingredients like proteins, probiotics, fiber, and so on. There are plenty of them, right? So typically that's how, you would bucket any reformulation journey. And no matter what trend you see in the market, right? If you pick any of the trends, it typically tends to fall in one of these two buckets. We also have access to our own proprietary AI-enabled consumer insights tool called a Trend Spotter. It's a Kerry tool. And it's a predictive tool. So when we look into that and we understand what consumers are looking at, clearly the future trends are around health and wellness. But like I said, like Federico said at the start, taste has to be important. It's king. It's absolutely king. Along with that, consumers in Asia are also looking for a lot of value. So you got to make sure you deliver a lot of value to the consumers. And what you're delivering in the form of food or a beverage is way higher than the price that they are paying, right? So that's the value that we talk about. And back to your specific point around plant protein. Clearly, it's still a fairly niche kind of a trend in our part of the world compared to US or Europe, where it's much more mainstream. But having said that, plant products have been popular in this world for thousands of years. It's nothing new. Whether it's soy or tofu or any of the other plant ingredients that we have, it's nothing new. But the fact and the way it's evolved into a broader story, which is around ethics, sustainability, animal welfare, caring for the world, that's new. The positioning is new. But look, clearly, again, in this part of the world, we are the starting stages on that. But this is clearly going in that direction in terms of the long-term trend.
Good, it's super helpful. Another question from the audience for you, Peggy, around you spoke about getting some of the less healthy ingredients out of your products. Do you also see reformulation of foods or of snacks to include some of the essential micronutrients and as a way to increase the nutritional value, or do you see that as an oxymoron in your category?
We certainly do not see that. Well, and I think when it comes to like reformulation, so it is a fine art. And as Federico and Parth already mentioned, taste is king. Taste is absolutely king. So in trying to balance that taste and consumer well-being expectation, it's really a fine art. So as a company, we really kind of approach it, three different ways. I mean, number one, looking at our portfolio today and making that gradual adjustments over time is essential. So take consumer along, with that reformulation journey. So say, for example, in terms of that sugar reductions in our tank, powdered beverage that we have in Philippines, that started way back in the early 2000s. And instead of like 5 teaspoons of sugar in the past, today, we managed to bring it down to just 1 teaspoon of that sugar per glass of tank. And the second thing is what I've already mentioned before, like providing that portion control packs and helping consumers to manage their intake through portions is definitely, one of those very effective way and recognized so to help consumer manage their intake. Now, third is kind of where the innovations with healthier recipes. With innovations, you can be bolder, and as consumers are more open to new tastes and new experience, you can play more, with the recipes and through, let's say, the additions of micronutrients or vitamins and minerals, and you can really kind of do, something with like new experience when consumers eat it. So today, for example, in regards to, let's say, a Belvita, products that we have in the market. And that is absolutely a product that we were able to add like a source of whole grains in it with the additions of vitamins and mineral and a source of fiber. So, designing product right from the start and getting, the right nutrients in it, we can do a lot more through that innovation platform.
That is very, very clear. Maybe just to go into one specific ingredient, and I'll let whoever wants to comment on it. Right, sugar is probably, and there are people that say, look, after tobacco, sugar could be as bad as tobacco, and I'm not going to say exactly how bad it would or would not be because I'm not an expert on that. But if you think about replacing sugar with sweeteners and naturals, to your point of heroing the natural ingredients, Federico, how are you looking at sugar replacement and the safety of sweeteners?
Yeah, actually, I can talk about sugar replacement, but not sweeteners, because in the direction we are taking in terms of reformulation is really removing sugar and replacing it with other natural wholesome ingredients, so something else rather than a proxy. So at the end of the day, and I mention again the case of sauces, we are working to even remove the culinary pinch in sauces, the culinary sugar pinch in the sauces, because at the end of the day, we can obtain the same or even better result through the other ingredients and the qualities of tomatoes. So this is a big exercise that we do in terms of consumer tasting session. So we have a continuous refinement of the recipes that are always tested and designed with our consumers. And actually the first product that that will come with no sugar added in the sauces will arrive in Australia soon, which are sauces that have 0 sugar, and all the other sauces anyway are getting below the nutritional guidelines that are issued by the WHO. So our objective is to match our nutritional guidelines to WHO to meet and even go below that, but also work on innovation in order to design a completely different product without sugar and playing with the taste profile of the other ingredients like the tomatoes or the other natural ingredients of the sauce.
That is super helpful. Barth or Peggy, anything else to add on the sugar replacement side?
Maybe just a quick comment building on what Federico said. Look, this journey has been around for a while, right? Clearly. And the tipping point that we've seen in this sugar reformulation journey has been when the governments started taxing or penalizing, those products which had a higher level of sugar than the recommended, daily consumption. That was clearly the tipping point, and now we are seeing a lot of launches in the market which are lesser in sugar, yet they have the same level of taste. That's the biggest challenge, right? Because when you take an ingredient out or you reduce it, there are 3 or 4 things more that need to change downstream. And that's been the biggest challenge that the industry has faced over the last a few years. But look, this is clearly is going to keep going in that direction. And for us, what we are seeing from the market, especially in our part of the world, sugar is seen as something which is the new evil, the latest devil on the block. It was fat earlier, now it's sugar. But clearly, from a consumer point of view, they're looking for solutions which are either sugar-free or reduced sugar, yet they give the same level of taste, convenience, and sometimes even pricing. So that's what we are seeing in this space.
And it's very interesting that you mentioned the word price. Go ahead, Peggy.
Sorry, Dave. I just want to add on a thing about sugar reductions, and I mean it's important that we don't take this a single nutrient approach to reformulation. And as much as we tend to think that sugar reduction is a simple thing, but it is not actually. And given that we look at snacking, for example, and you take sugar out, something needs to go back in. So if I give you a chocolate as an example, and by removing sugar from the recipes, you will have to add the other cocoa ingredients in it, and at the end of the day, you will have to increase that calorie and fat content. So, and sugar needs to be looked at really on a holistic manner, and just not as a single ingredient from a nutrition point of view, of course.
That is super helpful and makes a ton of sense. Maybe just a question: if you think about the importance of health and nutrition, how do you now make, particularly in this part of the world, healthy food really affordable? I don't know, Parth, if you want to start with that.
Yeah, look, that's a big challenge, isn't it? How do you make healthier food, yet it's making sure that it's affordable and it can reach the masses, right? We're not talking about the small segment in the society. And look, that's a big challenge. But look, we've had a few examples in the market where again, like Federico said at the start, this is an evolution. It's going to be a journey. Step by step, you got to keep moving on, right? And if you look at what's available in the market today compared to what it was even 5 years back, clearly you see a lot more options for the consumer to have access to those healthier versions than earlier. And healthier can be anything, right? It could be like you remove something or you add something. And if you look at the number of launches that we're seeing in the market with added benefits, whether it's proteins, probiotics, fibers, and so on, clearly that's gone up. And the pricing points, they are slightly more premium. In many cases now, you see products in the market which are healthier, yet they remain at the same kind of pricing point, which to me tells that it's a bit more affordable to the broader masses. But look, there is no simple answer to your question. How do you make it how do you make something healthier, more affordable? Because the minute you take something out, which is usually a cheaper raw material, you're building in cost into the product, and then somebody in the value chain has to take that cost. So that's a holy grail question, Dymfke, that I think many are trying to answer still. I don't have an answer specific to that.
No, I think that's fair. Any thoughts from you, Peggy?
It is a balancing act.
Otherwise I'll get. Yeah, it's a better game. Yeah, maybe then another one around. So you all spoke about, and Peggy, you started at speaking about the importance of education of consumers. Where are we really in terms of clean food labeling, reformulation, educating the consumers, and kind of keeping to our labeling practices in your eyes?
Transparency in terms of how we declare, our ingredients and our nutrition label is absolutely important because consumer needs to know what goes in, right? And I mean, fortunately, I think in terms of the kind of food regulations that we have in place today, has actually mandates. We do have to declare ingredients that goes in a product, and that in a way is an important avenue for consumers to then make the right choice. By studying what's in it and then pick that right choice that they need in their pursuit of that specific well-being needs. That's all. I think the other thing I will mention, Dymfke, is probably back to when it comes to the education elements that we as a company, we also have been heavily investing the mindful snacking, as I mentioned before, and working with the experts in validating the importance of the consumer behavior part of the snacking is something that we do kind of do a lot more these days actually.
Yeah.
If I can add a point on labeling, which I think is very relevant, and education. I mean, label is the first element of education or reassurance of the consumer. So label should be in general short and understandable. So, and I think this is the challenge that as a company we are taking. So making sure that there is only natural understandable thing and possibly the least possible one, so that the food is really wholesome and simple. The other point that I think is relevant is how to engage and move the education to the next level. On one side through marketing and communication, but then on the other side working with the institution to educate the future generations. In Italy, which is our own country, we have a program that runs since 20 years that basically partners with school, and we have seen a reduction of obesity rate in the kids, but also in the family where the kids live, because then the kids are advocates of this healthier lifestyle, and this is not only about food, but it's a full lifestyle. So walking more and eating better. We are starting. We started doing this exercise in Asia, and I'm very glad to see that. The institutions and the schools particularly are very keen in working on this, because this is something that will go in the direction of a more responsible and healthy consumption for the future generations.
That makes a ton of sense, and I think and I think we discussed a little bit before this broadcast that the longer COVID takes in a way, the more opportunity you potentially have also to educate and change behaviors of consumers. Maybe a completely slightly different twist to the trends of food reformulation we discussed before is the leverage of alternative proteins. Do you, beyond some of the trends you've already mentioned, anything else you see in that space? It might be still very niche, Parth, but any views on that?
No, look, this is clearly it has accelerated, right, in the last couple of years, and more so in our part of the world, as you have, some of the bigger players in the market, especially on the food service side, right? So typically what we see in the market is trends that tend to start from the outside in, right? It starts from some small bars, cafes, lounges. It goes on to food service, and then it goes on to the retail sector. Typically, not all the time. 80-20 rule. So look, alternative proteins. When we talk about besides plant, is actually tiny. Like besides plant, if you look at the percentage of the market that they would have, would be negligible. But look, again, a lot of interest, a lot of funding in that space. A lot of startups are there. A lot of collaborations, joint ventures. So this space is going to heat up pretty quickly. The plant space, like I said, is already there. Again, it's not mainstream yet. I wouldn't say it's mainstream by any stretch of the imagination. But look, at the pace at which it's going, the technology is evolving so quickly. The players are getting into the market with some fantastic products. They taste, they look, they feel like it's like meat, for instance. And the more the technology evolves, the more consumers get used to it. I think this is clearly going to be a space which is going to boom out a lot more than what it is today. That's basically what we are seeing in the space. So look, we need more bigger players, bigger organizations jumping onto this, and it's the call of the consumers clearly. If they see value, if they see the taste is good, if they understand the story behind the brand, the product, this category is clearly going to be a big one in the next in the near future.
Very good. Maybe one final last question then. We spoke a lot about reformulation. Do you guys see repackaging or reducing size as a way also to better educate the consumer? You say that's a completely different topic.
Personally, I think so. Let me just provide the perspective. And actually, this is something that we are working on as a company and in Asia. We have a more out of home business in Italy, so snacking is quite relevant. And I'm sure that also Peggy mentioned we are reducing the portion to get below the 150 calories per portion in Europe. But then, starting from this insight, we started understanding better which is the right portion for the people, for the markets in Asia, because we realized that the quantity of food that is eaten and the eating patterns are different. So actually, we are reducing in some markets the size of our packs in order to make sure that people will get the 2 portion and not be kind of thinking that a bigger pack is 2 portion. And we are much more clear in the portion included in a pack, which is something that we give for granted in Europe, but we actually understood we had to work on in Asia. And this is particularly true for pasta and sauces, but also the snacks that we are selling in the region in Asia.
Very good. Well, you want to say something, Peggy, and then we'll have to round up.
I know we're running out of time, but I just want to point out another thing about like reformulation through the right portion size. Of course, like looking at the right portions, providing the right calorie levels, to consumer is one part. And the second part to that, right pack size is also about affordability. And I think Parth, earlier on mentioned about, how do you kind of get the affordable products to consumer, right? I mean, there's no answer to that. And I don't think we have, a very simple solution to it, but, getting that right pack size, and making sure that, they're affordable, and making sure that, we could get it to the right, channel. As for example, in Asia, you have a lot of mom and pop stores, like sari stores, and it's just impossible to get, like product packs in a much larger family size. And you do have to kind of bring it down to a unit level that is easy for consumers to get to.
That makes a ton of sense. Thank you so much, Peggy, Parth, and Federico, for your contributions. What I've learned today, at least, is that no matter how you turn it, left, right, and center, taste is the primary concern of the consumer. At the same time, as an industry, we are and should be taking responsibility for the health of our consumers, from an educational perspective, from a reformulation perspective, as well as ultimately reducing pack sizes where needed. But also, I've also learned there's a lot more to be done because it's not that simple. Thank you. Back over to you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Dymfke, and thank you for your questions and for joining us today. I'll see you again in just 3 hours' time. At 2 this afternoon, our dialogue's subject is very topical: wellness and immunity, strengthening the immune system. So for more experts, insights, debate, and the chance to have your questions answered live, dial in again at 2. And please make a note in your calendar to join me for the launch of FIA TV's Food for the Future program on August 12th. I'll see you again at 2.